Howdy howdy y'all, today we're going to be going over our utility support character in Baldur's Gate 3. In this case, it's going to be a cleric, a life cleric. Cleric is one of my favorite classes in Baldur's Gate 3. There's just so much they can do, and all their subclasses, or I should say a majority of their subclasses, are very good. Now, we've already done a build for our martial frontline character, which was our paladin, and we've done our dexterity based character that's going to be doing our lockpicking with their ranger. So now we are moving into that more support utility role, and for that we have our cleric here. Now real quick, these builds are not dependent on gear. This will be a plug and play. Will gear make this build even better? Yes, but it's important to know that it's the skills that are the most important thing, and then preparation. So this can go into auto mode and this can go into tactician, no problem. I'm going to be breaking down what you're supposed to be doing in Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and then a little bit of gameplay at the end. Is just the gameplay is not really going to matter so much with this one, because the most important thing with this build is going to be preparation and then just keeping your party alive. And so gameplay really, it's not going to be anything exciting. So I'm not going to waste anybody's time. So Shadow Art here is going to be our cleric, and we're going to start off with what we're going to be doing in Act 1. Act 1, if Shadow Heart is your cleric, you're going to get Firebolt. Firebolt, you will see when we get to our abilities, is an okay cantrip. We're not going to be using all that option. Obviously, our class is going to be cleric. Cantrip wise, the only really important one here is guidance. Guidance is really nice for ability checks. You don't use a spell to cast it, and I can't tell you how often this procs to use. Just use guidance whenever it comes up, all the time. Can't say enough about guidance. Guidance is really good. Everything else really doesn't matter. We're going with Life Domain. Life Domain is going to let us heal a lot. Probably way too much for this game, but we're going to stick with it anyways. And it's also going to give us the ability to wear heavy armor, so then making us tanky and also healing a lot. Her background, can't really change that. We're going to leave it as is. And this is kind of the ability spread you want to have. Now, you want to put around 12 into intelligence, because this cantrip here, Firebolt, is based off of intelligence. So if you don't have any intelligence, you're never going to hit with Firebolt. And Sacred Flame is not a good cantrip in general, so I would just make sure you have at least 12 intelligence in there. But the two big main stats we want to focus on are Wisdom and Constitution. And then Dexterity with the 14, just to make sure we have a little bit of a higher initiative, and we're getting our turns close to the top. But yeah, Constitution is probably going to be our biggest factor, because this build really relies on our concentration spells, and you'll see that later on. And then Wisdom, obviously just our offensive spells, and then our curing will scale off this. So level 2 here, this is just where you get your starting life cleric stuff. Turn Undead, this will become more useful a little bit later. And then Preserve Life, this is just going to be your Divinity skill charge ability, which will just do a big heal. This comes back on short rest, and it's very nice to just get a free heal, a big heal by the way, that's only going to get stronger and stronger as you progress the game. For our prepared spells here, we really just want to make sure we have Guiding Bolt and we have Healing Word and Sanctuary. Sanctuary is very important. Sanctuary is going to ensure that our healer stays alive so they can heal and keep the party alive. This is a great get out of jail free card, and really, really useful in honor mode when you don't have a save to fall back to. So definitely take Sanctuary here. If you're at the beginning of the game and you want a certain greatsword, go ahead and pick yourself up Command. You probably know what I'm talking about. And then there's a certain counter if you don't have any water jugs to throw, that Create Water is important. So we're going to take all these and then move on to level 3. Level 3, we're going to get a couple good life domain skills. Aid, this is just a nice preparation skill, but we kind of are going to want to watch how many spells we're using, because at the beginning of the game as a spellcaster, you're kind of limited on your spell use. So not something I'd use right now, but it'll be nice for later on. The spells we want to take here, really nothing too important. Warding Bond is nice. Again, we are a life cleric. We have heavy armor, and so we're going to be very tanky, plus with our Preserve Life Divinity skill and then Healing Word. And so Warding Bond is just going to ensure that one of our allies that we choose are going to be a little bit tankier, because our cleric here can handle it. Let's move on to level 4. Level 4 here, we get another cantrip. Nothing important here. Don't worry about that too much. For our next level 2 spell, I would take actually Prayer of Healings. This will be a AoE heal around you. This is just nice to have. Feat wise, this is where we want to take Warcaster. So Warcaster is going to give us advantage on saving throws for our concentration abilities. Like I said earlier, concentration is very important for this class. So this is going to make us roll our dice twice, and we're going to take the highest one. So we definitely need this. And as a cherry on top, we get basically an opportunity spell. What if somebody comes into melee range and then tries to leave? We will do Shocking Grasp against them. This is just a nice ability. It's not super important. The main thing that we want is that advantage on saving throws for concentration spells. So let's move on to level 5. Level 5, we get damage added to our turn undead ability. This is why I said at level 1, this would turn out to be a little bit better later, and this is why. And then we get a few other nice spells. Revivify. This is just, again, just to keep your party up and healthy. I don't know how many times in this build I'm going to need to talk about how healing spells just heal and keep your party alive, but I'll try to keep it to a minimum. For our level 3 spell here, we can go with 2 options. We either going to take Spirit Guardians. If you're finding that your party is not dying too much and you're just slaying out, then Spirit Guardians, take this. This is just going to give you more offensive capabilities. It is a concentration, so you'd have to trade it out for Bless. If you don't want that, you can take Mass Healing Word. This is an AoE heal. This is basically the bonus action version of Prayer of Healing, except for, I think the radius is further, yeah, 18 meters. So this is a really good spell. We're going to want to use this later on, but again, either one, you can't go wrong here. So moving on to level 6. Level 6, we're actually going to respec. But before that, let's kind of talk about what you're going to be doing level 1 to 5 in around Act 1. So the first thing you're going to be doing is picking your 2 best damage dealers who need help with their attack rolls, and you're going to be casting Bless on them. Once you cast Bless on them, you want to make sure you're at a safe location. If you're in the middle of something, then use, Sanctuary to get yourself to safety. But if you're finding that your cleric is pretty safe all the time and your party's not getting hurt too much, go ahead and just start slinging guiding bolts. It's a great damage spell, and I never really get tired of using it. Past that, you're really just ensuring that your team stays alive with all your healing abilities that you have. You can choose a partner to go with Warding Bond if you want to play like that. Future me here, I forgot to mention, especially for Act 1, if you want to save your spell slots for damaging spells for the cleric, give majority of your healing potions to your cleric to then throw them at allies to heal instead of spending that spell. Anywho, continue with the video. But you can see kind of a simple setup. Again, just almost like a generic healer buffer, but things are about to get a lot more interesting. That's why we're going to respec once we hit level 6. So for level 6, we are not multi-classing. We are going straight into a respec into Sorcerer, because Sorcerers get a proficiency bonus to Constitution saving throws. These Constitution checks, like I said earlier, is a main staple of this class. We want to make sure that we never fail any rolls involving Concentration and Constitution. So for our cantrips, none of these are that important. You can honestly pick whatever you want. Spell-wise, we definitely want to take Shield. This is a great reaction ability. I've already talked about it before, but this is one of the best reactions in the game, and this is going to help keep our party alive with giving them that extra 5 bonus armor. Offensively, Magic Missile. This is going to just be a great offensive spell for breaking other enemies' concentrations or just making sure you get guaranteed damage to take enemies out. So for the subclass, you really can't go wrong with any of these. I'm going to go with the Draconic Bloodline. I'm going to go with Fire. That way I get fire resistance, because fire is probably the most common damage type for spells in this game, especially ones that are being thrown at you. Ability points. This is the spread I'm going with here. So you don't actually need charisma because the charisma sorcerer spells that we're going to be taking don't scale with charisma. So that's why we're sticking with wisdom here, because that's what our healing is going to be based off of. And then obviously constitution, super important. We can actually lower our intelligence a little bit because we're not going to be using firebolt too much. We're going to have plenty of spell slots to be using level 1 spells like for magic missile. So this cantrip's not going to be very useful anymore. And then, yeah, just maybe a little bit more strength. Just again, this one doesn't really matter. The important thing here is the constitution and the wisdom, and then having your dexterity for higher initiative. All right, let's zoom through our levels here. So for level 2's sorcerer, none of these really matter that much. We'll just pick false lies. So this is the other reason we went with sorcerers, because meta magic. Meta magic is busted for spellcasters, especially for a support utility character like this. So we want to go twin spell here, and then maybe extended or distance, but probably just extended. That one's not important. Twinned is the one we really want. So we can move on to level 3. Level 3 spell, there's nothing really super important here that we're going to be using. Misty Step, this is just going to be a great mobility option. We get another meta magic here. I would go with Quicken just in case you want to go on that more offensive track, or you can go with Heightened as well. Neither one of these are a bad choice, but just know this is the last meta magic choice you're going to get. I will actually just go with Quicken, just so if I do need to use my bonus action to cast a spell, we have that option. And real quick about heightened meta magic. So if maybe you didn't see it, but in my previous build for my paladin, they take heightened, so they use that control person. So that's why I'm not going to double down on it here, because we're gonna have 2 classes in this party setup that are going to be able to do that heightened hold person or hold monster combo to really lock down targets. So that's why we're not worrying about it on our cleric. And I don't think I mentioned it before, but this is not a solo build. This is meant to be fit into like a team synergy. So keep that in mind. Level 4 here, cantrip wise, nothing, not really that important. Spell wise, again, nothing too important here. We're gonna go with enhanced ability. This can help with dice checks, but it is going to cost you a level 2 spell slot. So just keep that in mind. Feat wise, so we're going to go back to Warcaster. This just gives us, again, advantage on those Constitution saving throws. Level 5, this is where the build becomes very strong because we're going to be picking Haste. So the idea here is to have twin meta magic and then cast haste on your 2 best damage dealers. This now makes this character a haste battery for your party. This is why Constitution is so important, because if you get knocked out of your concentration, you just basically took out 2 of your best damage dealers out of the fight for a turn, which can be very rough. So that's why we're making sure that our Constitution is so high. So level 6, this is now where we were before, but now we're at either the end of Act 1 or we're at the beginning of Act 2. Cantrip wise, we're not losing guidance. Guidance is super important. I wouldn't leave you guys hanging. This is a very important spell. These other cantrips, not that important. We need to go back into life domain. This just, again, make sure we have great healing. Sanctuary is what we want to make sure we have here. Command, not really as useful anymore. Okay, so now we're moving on to level 7. So from basically level 7 to 10, we are going to be taking Cleric, and we're going to be taking all the same spells that we took before when we started the game and we went from level 1 to level 5. So nothing's going to change there. So we basically can just jump to the end of Act 2 and we can kind of go over what your cleric's going to be doing for your party. But Nomad, you beautiful bastard, at level 9, because we're at level 4 cleric, we're going to be getting another feat. So we're not just jumping straight to level 10, picking all the same things. You're right. You're absolutely right. So let's jump into what feat you're going to be taking. My feat of choice for the second feat they're going to be taking is probably Alert. Alert is just going to ensure that you have the highest initiative, you're not going to get surprised, and you're going to be going first in that turn order. If you want to go with ability and score improvement and make sure your constitution is up to 18 to, again, ensure that you don't fail those concentration spells or have them knocked off you, you could do that too. But I always like to go with Alert. So we're at the end of Act 2, but let's kind of talk about what your cleric's going to be doing overall. You're going to be using Meta Magic Twinned to haste 2 of your best damage dealers, and you should really only be doing this on tough encounters because you want to be burning through your resources super quickly. Because your sorcery points, you do have a limited amount of them. You can restore a few, but again, you would be wasting a lot of resources between encounters if you do that every time. Use haste when appropriate. It's really strong, and it'll basically carry you through a lot of encounters on its own, just by hasting your best damage dealer. But if you're not doing haste or you don't feel like you need it, Bless is a completely viable option still to help your other characters make sure they're succeeding on their attack rolls. And it's only level 1 spell slot, so you're not committing too much like using a level 3 spell for every encounter. Other than that, Guiding Bolt, healing when necessary, and that's basically how the cleric's going to play the rest of the time. We're going to get a few more things at the end, and so we can jump into that real quick. All right, so we're beginning Act 3 now. So we're give or take, a level for Act 3. So we're going to have 2 choices here. We can either go into level 6 Sorcerer or level 6 Cleric. The way we're going to end this is a 6 and 6 split. So let's just kind of talk about what you could take first and what's the difference. So if you take Life Cleric first, you're just going to get a lot more healing, and you're going to get a second Divinity charge to cast that Preserve Life, and you can cast it 6 times between long rest because it'll come back after short rest. So that'll just make you just a better healer, which your healing is overkill by now, but that's an option, and that's kind of the point of the build. It's just your team is not going to die. Or you could go into your last level of Sorcerer, which this is what I would recommend. It's going to give you resistance to fire, it's going to give you another sorcery point, and it's also going to give you a really important spell in Counterspell. Because we are the support character for this party, we want to prioritize Counterspell with this character. Counterspell will be on a few other characters. We just want to ensure that we're fulfilling our role as our utility support. So that's what I would go with first. And then obviously that last level there, you're going to be going into Cleric for that additional healing. So now let's jump into a gameplay segment. It'll be really short and we'll kind of show like what you can do and what your options are in combat. So we're into our encounter here. I already started the encounter. This is a nice little spot in the last map that kind of has a lot of guards you can piss off that will basically let you test your party just like a smidge to see how well they're working. We have Shadowheart here. This is our showcase. This is our cleric that we are showing off as far as a support character. No armor required. I will show you how this works without any gear. We are on tactician mode, so we're good to go with the difficulty. And so we kind of just want to play out how this is going to work. So our 2 damage dealers here will be our paladin and our ranger. We're going to cast twin spell, and then we're going to cast haste. And actually, we're not going to do that. And I'll tell you why. Because we have a mage right here. That mage needs to die first, or I could bait their counterspell. I'll just see if I can kill them first with my ranger. Probably. You can see I started basically the encounter like being in the middle of everything. This is kind of like how I like to play the game. Essentially is I like to bull rush into encounters. I don't like to do too much preparation. So the way I had like this whole party composition working is everybody is super self-sufficient and able to adapt on the fly and have basically a tool for every type of problem. I don't want to spend ages, getting to the right spot and making sure I like take people out by stealth first. No, I just like to get in there and kind of just start the fighting. So we're going to make sure we take out this the mage first, so that way they can't cast counterspell on us. Oof, this is our ranger from before. Oh, they're so good, so good. All right, so the mage is out of the way. We can now go ahead and cast Twinned, and we can cast Haste on. We'll just work with our paladin and then our ranger. So now we have that concentration. The most important thing to do now is make sure our support character here stays alive. So Sanctuary, boom. Now, they're completely untouchable to, I just got more aggro. They're completely untouchable to the enemies. So not gonna get hit. And now we can go back to our ranger because they have even more abilities. Disadvantage from equipment. She probably has the wrong equipment on. So it's actually not the exact same ranger we had before. They're dead. We'll just skip turns. We'll be showing off this build a little bit later. Alright, do you guys have that bug? Did you see that? Will did not do his fireball animation and he just kind of stood there. I feel like I've been seeing that one a little bit too often lately, but you guys let me know if you see that bug when you're playing. These guys have a lot of abilities. Okay, you see when they cast Mass Cure Wounds, level 5, so I need to match that with my counterspell. And again, I want to prioritize my support utility character with using counterspell as a reaction. So no healing for you. Shut that down. Okay, and then back to our cleric. So like, what would my cleric do right now? Well, our party is very much alive, so we could go on the offensive and start throwing guiding bolts, or we could just sit back and heal everybody up real quick. And you can see how many heals just procced for Shadowheart there. Will is back to full health. Again, that didn't cost a spell slot, that was just a divinity charge, and we can get those back on short rest. Silence, so we definitely want to counterspell this. It's a level 2 spell, so we just need to use level 3. Shut down. So yeah, I really don't feel like I need to show all the rest of the encounter because, again, this is almost a very simple build, but just super effective at your team's not going to die. If they do die, you have so many healing options. You can keep this character super safe with Sanctuary, and then the ability to counterspell and then be a haste battery. It's just, this is like the perfect support utility and just something I take along because of my playstyle of just, rushing into encounters and not really trying to do too much preparation. This class just ensures that my party will be able to continue on and I can get into those tough encounters and fights and I know I'll be okay because, again, I have a fantastic healer and support character here. So let me know what you guys think of the build. Obviously, Cleric can be played in a lot of different ways. And so this was just the one, my go-to for this this 4 class setup that I'm going for. And then yeah, later I already said that cleric is one of my favorite classes, so I will be making more builds involving the cleric. They're great as a multi-class, and then also just their base class alone is very special in what they can do. And obviously they have a lot more offensive capabilities that I'm not utilizing here, because again, this is just my healer. It's just really good at healing, and then really good at supporting and buffing my party members, while also, you know, having something like counterspell. But if you made it this far, consider liking and subscribing. The heart of this channel is Baldur's Gate 3. I do throw in some like MMO stuff, but that's not always going to be like continuing on. And the vibe here is just very chilled, very relaxed. It's almost like you know, we're sitting down at a pub or a brewery or something, and we're just chatting amongst friends. That's kind of the vibe I go for this channel. So there's one more class that I got to go through for this four party setup, and that would be my damage dealing spellcaster. You saw a little bit over here, but I don't want to get too into it right now. You can probably guess, yeah, it's going to be Sorcerer, but that'll be the next build to come out. So I'll see you guys then. Peace.